Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another podcast with the GD Report. We've got G here, and I'm D, and looking forward to visiting with you tonight, sharing some opinions on the world of politics. Our topic tonight is what's on everyone's mind. We were told just yesterday at a press conference by former Vice President Joe Biden that he would be announcing his vice president pick next week, so the first full week of August. So he's got, several days in there he can choose from. We don't know which day it's going to be, but the pick is imminent. And so tonight we're going to handicap the field for you and go through the top 12 or so candidates as we see it. And then we'll also give our picks at the end of who each G and D believe that the pick will eventually be. So let's kick it off. G-Man, where do we want to start? Do we want to start in the great state of California, or do we want to start?
Yeah, let's start with Kamala Harris, Senator Kamala Harris.
Yeah, go ahead. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think she's one of the top three front runners. I wouldn't be shocked if Joe picked her. I think she has a lot of upside. She checks off all the boxes that he said he wanted to check off for a candidate. And she's in a state with a Senate seat that's totally reliable. So when she leaves, Gavin Newsom will appoint her successor, and the Dems won't have to worry about losing a seat. Could
be himself when he appoints it, too.
It could be, exactly.
Yeah, I think she's definitely one of the strongest candidates for a lot of reasons that you said. She brings a lot of progressive values, but she also has a law enforcement background.
Right.
So they can check some of the comments about tough on crime. She's a former prosecutor and attorney general. I think it would be a lot of fun to see her debate Mike Pence.
Right.
Because when she was at, I know when Bill Barr was confirmed at his confirmation hearings, she had some of the most devastating lines of questioning. So I think that background's really great. The biggest drawback I see with her is whether or not that she's totally bought in by Biden's inner circle. She went pretty hard at him in the first couple of debates this time, and
right.
Some pretty harsh comments about busing in the 70s and about his associations with some of the segregationist senators when Senator Biden first got to the Senate. And so the question is going to be whether his insiders, including his wife, which we know she's such a dominant advisor to him, which as it should be, but whether that hurt feelings to the point where they would not want to consider her.
Yeah, well, didn't he come out this week and say he doesn't hold a grudge? And
well, everybody says that all the time.
Right.
When they're trying to make nice.
Well, I think she's still one of the top three. Let's see. Moving on to number 2 on my list is Stacey Abrams. So Stacey should be sitting in the governor's seat right now, if not for the voter suppression efforts of the current governor. And we'll get back to him with another candidate in a little bit. But Stacey gets a lot of buzz. A lot of people like her. I don't. And I'll tell you why I don't. When you really start to look at her, when you drill down, so one of the things that Biden said he really wanted was somebody that could step in, that was presidential material, that was ready in case anything happened, because the Republicans are going to make his age, and they've already started kind of hammering on his Alzheimer's tendencies, so to speak, and so I don't think she's ready. I don't think her resume says I could step in and be the leader of the free world. I just don't. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to go counterpoint with you on that, because the same thing was said in 2008 about a 2-year U.S. senator from the state of Illinois named Barack Obama.
Right.
A lot of people said he didn't have the experience, and I understand the point about Stacey, because she's been a state senator in the state of Georgia and not held any higher office than that. She has run some organizations nationwide, some get out the vote efforts and things like that. But I would argue that no one's really ready for the presidency until they're in it. And I think Harry Truman called it the most lonely job in the world,
right.
especially after FDR passed away and he assumed the presidency from the vice presidency. But I get the age factor. I think one of the upsides on Stacey is the fact that Georgia is a purple state, and with her popularity, the question is, could she deliver Georgia for Biden? Could she deliver Georgia and bring it through and help the other two Senate candidates
Right.
with those two seats that we talked about last week? So there's some definite upside with her. I think also she would excite the youth vote and maybe help turn out some of the youth vote and get them really excited on the progressive side. So I think she's still a very intriguing candidate, but I think there's some people with some better experience that Joe may lean towards. I mean, when Obama picked Joe for his vice president, he leaned on the fact that all the experience that Joe had and that he had run for president. I think that was his second time, I think, that he ran for president. This will be his third time. So it'll be interesting to see where she ends up. If she doesn't get picked for the vice presidency, I think there's a good chance that she sends Brian Kemp home in 2 years.
Well, I would like to see that, definitely. Let's move up the coast there to Massachusetts and Senator Elizabeth Warren. What's your take on her?
Elizabeth Warren, one of my favorite people in the entire world. No secret, one of my favorite candidates for president. I think she's from my home state, the great state of Oklahoma, where she was born, where she grew up, and a phenomenal person, great consumer advocate. I think she would definitely get the progressive side of the party very excited because of her stances. I think she could help Joe kind of balance the ticket. Some of the drawbacks, though, on her, obviously there's a big push, especially with some of the recent more open discussion about race relations, about him picking a woman of color, since he did say he would pick a woman. And obviously she's an older white woman, so there's the issue of balancing the ticket when it comes to race. Also, I think the other big challenge with her is the fact that there's a Republican governor in Massachusetts. So if she runs, there's a chance that if the legislature doesn't change the law, that Republican governor would get to appoint that seat. I'm never in favor of changing the rules once you win the game, but that's what would have to happen for a Democrat to be able to hold that seat. So I could, the nightmare scenario there is that Biden wins the presidency with Warren as his vice president, and it's an even 50-50 split, and then that seat comes open, and then the Republican appoints a Republican, and then Mitch McConnell, Moscow Mitch, is the majority leader for 2 more years.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Well, you and I disagree on our stance with her. I never was a big Elizabeth Warren fan. I think she's a favorite Trump target. I think she adds fuel to the fire for his base. I just think that she would not be the best pick for Joe to make. Speaking of women,
let me know which candidate's not going to give fuel to the fire for Trump's base. It's going to be a woman. Come on.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So speaking of women of color, let's move down to Karen Bass, chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus. What's your take on her?
Why don't you go first on this one?
Well, she's feisty. I think she brings a lot to the ticket. I think, you have to have something on the ball to get elected to that position, chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus. I think she's kind of a dark horse candidate that in the next couple of days we might see her kind of rising to the top.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think she's got a good mix of progressive views with some moderation as well. So I think her politics mixes well with Biden. I think they get along. They've got some history from her being in the Congress, him being when he was in the Senate, and when he was vice president. She's not that well known, and that's not always a bad thing.
Right.
I think the state of the race right now is Vice President Biden has to do no harm with the pick.
Right.
And so if he went crazy and picked you or me, Gunner, that could deep six his candidacy pretty quick.
Right.
But he wants to, if he's looking for somebody that might be viewed as a safer pick, I think she's, I like her a lot, and I don't mean that as a negative, but I just think with the fact that she's not as well known and that she's got some moderate in her politics, I think she could be a very great pick.
Right. Well, just remember when Roosevelt and his advisors tabbed Harry Truman, he wasn't very well known either.
It's true. And Roosevelt also, a lot of people forget, 4 terms he was elected. He had a different vice president every time.
Right. Next on the list, let's go to Keisha Lance Bottoms, the mayor of Atlanta, and another target from the governor there. And so if it's okay, I'll take the lead on that. One of the things I think the governor has sued her for is basically to paint her in a negative light, because I think they think if Biden picks her, she's a strong candidate, would bring a lot to the ticket, and basically would deliver those 2 seats like that we talked about before, those 2 Senate seats.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it kind of goes back to, I know you and I both grew up in our younger days in the church, and one of the things they used to say in the church was, yeah, you knew you were living right if the devil would attack you.
Right.
So I think that can be true with her. I think they view her, if not as a really strong VP candidate, she could definitely be a gubernatorial candidate. And I think Kemp's scared to death of her either way. Yep. And so she's a strong leader. She comes out. She does have good progressive values, but I also know that when after Mr. Richard was killed by the police, the next, I think 2 days later, there was a young child that was shot and killed in a drive-by shooting. Right. And she came very strongly against gang violence, and so she had a really good balance of good core values along with progressive ideals. So I think she's an interesting pick, and a lot of times we don't think about mayors as picks for either president or vice president. We know Mr. Bloomberg tried it earlier this year, and it didn't last very long at all.
Right.
But
judge too.
She's got some substance, and she could be, and again, like you said, could deliver that purple state, Georgia.
Right. Let's head out west a little bit to New Mexico. Michelle Lujan Grisham, the governor there. What's your take on her?
Yeah, she's from a well-known family, well-connected family. I believe her cousin, her cousin is running for the Senate seat that's going to be open this time. Right. And he's already won the Democratic nomination, and so it's almost a foregone conclusion he'll be the next U.S. senator from the state of New Mexico. But she checks a lot of boxes too. Latina, she's obviously a strong governor. She spent some time in Congress. She was a former congresswoman, so she's got legislative experience. She's also taken on some really strong challenges there in the state. New Mexico is a lot like a lot of Western states. You've got Albuquerque and Santa Fe and the big populations there. And then you've got some really big, sparsely populated rural areas, but in the rural areas, they're deeply red conservative. And so she's balanced a lot of things when it comes to gun control and some of the hot topics there, but done a really good job of it. She could be somebody that doesn't get a lot of buzz now, but definitely could be a strong pick for Biden. I think the challenge is going to be that if he's looking for a state to deliver, that she wouldn't. He's already has New Mexico in the box. So the question is, could she help him in some other areas? Could she help him in Arizona with the Latino population there? Could she help him maybe in Georgia with the Latino population,
or Texas?
Florida? Yeah, Texas too. What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm a native Texan, so I kind of know how Texans think, and I think unless he picks a Texan, there's no Hispanic that's going to help him with Texas. I could be wrong about that, but they just kind of consider themselves their own little entity, and they like to stick with their own. But she definitely, I think, could help him in Arizona.
It was the Republic of Texas, after all.
It was exactly. Let's move up north to Michigan and talk about Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah, one of my favorite candidates. I'm a big fan of hers, and I liked her early on. She's kind of fizzled a little bit as far as the buzz goes. She had some real big buzz, but just like we talked about last week with the response to the coronavirus, COVID-19, the nation's had to look to the governors for leadership.
Right.
And she's done a really good job in Michigan, in spite of the fact that she had some really strong right-wing protests where, it's funny to me when the protesters show up in Lafayette Park, the National Guard gets called out, but when the protesters don't want to wear a mask and show up at the Michigan State Capitol carrying AR-15s, they're just allowed to walk around freely.
Right.
A little bit of a soapbox issue there. But I think, she's a powerful governor. She could help deliver that state. Joe's very strong in Michigan and in the upper Midwest already, but she could help deliver that state. There is a recall petition right now trying to recall her, but I don't think it's gained a lot of traction.
Right.
She did have a little faux pas, almost it was close to what I would call pulling the Hickenlooper, where her husband tried to put a boat in the water, even though the docks were all closed, and he tried to play the "Do you know who my wife?" card is.
Right.
And so, but she owned it. She did a good job owning it and saying, "Hey, those things happen," and apologize for it. But I think there's a chance, but I don't see her being where she was early on in the discussions.
Yeah, I think her stock's kind of fallen down a little bit as well. Let's head back down south to a state that it's neck and neck right now, at least as far as the polling I've seen. That's Florida. Let's talk about Val Demings, the U.S. rep from there.
What's your thoughts on her?
Well, she's a former police chief, so she's got, a criminal background. She's in a state that Biden needs to win, and at this point, I think it's a toss-up. I think he is ahead in the polling, but it's within the margin of error. I think she's a pretty decent candidate, and I would put her in the top 5.
Yeah, she was one of the House prosecutors from the impeachment trial too, and was very strong, and her national prominence grew then. I think one of the drawbacks is some of the progressive groups have looked at her record as a police chief and some of the things when it came to incarceration, her positions in the past on mass incarceration. So there may be some things like that may be a little hard for some on the left to swallow. But I think this year's election is an Al Davis election if I've ever seen one, which is just win.
Right, just win. You're right. My next candidate is the ultimate dark horse. It's her name is, if I'm saying this correct, Gina Raimondo from Rhode Island. What do you know about her?
She was had one of the strongest responses to the COVID virus, and really worked well in that Northeast corridor, and they've pretty much stamped it out in their state. So she's done a good job with that. Didn't get pushed around either. I mean, she had a pretty big tangle with Andrew Cuomo about traveling back and forth between the states when COVID was really breaking out in New York, and so I think she's got a lot of street cred when it comes to politics. I think the question is going to be, what does Biden gain by picking her, a Northeast governor from a tiny state that's dyed in the wool blue? I don't see a ton of upside for him picking her at all. What's your thoughts?
Well, I know she's had some run-ins with the unions, and I know the unions muscle has kind of diminished, but still, I don't think that in this day and age you stand much of a chance if you in the Democratic Party if you don't at least get some backing from the unions. And I know that she's had a lot of trouble with them. So I would say she's a candidate, but she doesn't have much of a chance at this point. I'd probably give that a 10-1 shot. Next is a person I think has a really good shot, and that's Senator Tammy Duckworth. What's your take on her?
Yeah, it's just a great candidate. Actually, my wife's favorite candidate for vice president. Military veteran that lost both of her legs in a Black Hawk helicopter crash that she was piloting, she would be the first Asian American president or vice president. And super popular in her state too, in Illinois. And Illinois is known as a Democratic stronghold now, but it's a very fickle state.
Right.
I mean, you look at the history, I think it's something like their last, I want to say 5 out of their last 6 former governors have been in prison.
Yeah.
And it's been Democrats and Republicans. So it's been a truly bipartisan issue. And so they go back and forth. The type of Republicans they typically have are downstate, but there are some upstate Republicans there that are more in the label of Lincoln. But Tammy Duckworth, she's accomplished a lot in Congress. She was a congresswoman, I believe, for about 3 terms, and then now she's in the Senate. And so she's got a lot of experience. She's got that military background. Oddly enough, about 2 weeks ago, Tucker Carlson, I hate to even say his name to give him any oxygen, but attacked her and said she was unpatriotic.
Right.
And I don't really understand how you can call someone unpatriotic that's given 2 of their limbs in service of the country. So I think she would be a tough debate again for Mike Pence. I think he's gonna struggle with whoever that he has, because it's not going to be a Sarah Palin type thing where Joe Biden, when he debated Sarah Palin, had to worry about, am I going too tough on her? Because he's going to be up against some tough challengers, whoever it is. What's your thoughts on Duckworth?
Well, her family, I don't understand Tucker Carlson either questioning her patriotism, because her family's military service goes back to even before the Revolutionary War. Her dad fought in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. As you said, she gave both her legs for our country. I just think she's a phenomenal candidate. She's my top at this point. She's my top candidate. But
yeah, I can think of when I saw her at some of the military. It might have been either Memorial Day this year or Veterans Day. I saw her at some of those. Just the power of her walking on her prosthetics and saluting, and the true patriotism. I mean, she's the type of person that makes me proud to be an American when I see her.
Absolutely. Our next one is a person who some say is actually the front runner right now, and that's Susan Rice, who served in Obama's administration, has a lot of upside, checks a lot of boxes, would definitely be able to step into the presidency. If God forbid something happened to Biden. What's your take?
Yeah, I think I'm a big Susan Rice fan. I know what the downside that everybody says on her is the B word, Benghazi.
Yep.
But I don't really look at that as a downside. She went on the morning talk shows and gave the intelligence report as she was given it.
Right.
And so it's to me, she would definitely light some Republican fires. You would see that might even cure Louis Gohmert of the COVID if he saw her as the VP candidate, because they would be so worked up, and we'd probably have to have more hours of Benghazi hearings that would be much ado about nothing. I think that'll be the interesting thing. Little sidebar here: whoever the nominee is.
It looks like we had a little glitch there.
Ukraine hearings, or whether it's going to be more Benghazi hearings or whatever. But Susan Rice definitely knows the job. She's worked very closely with Vice President Biden when he was VP, and she was National Security Advisor. They've been in the rooms together, the Situation Room. I'm sure he's comfortable with her as far as decision making goes, and so I think that she definitely is. To me, she's the top 3 right now, right. And again, I think that just goes back to preparedness. And when it comes to being able to step in, I know that the current occupant of the White House wants to make a lot of issues about the former vice president and say just mean-spirited things about his cognitive ability, which has all been there's no truth to any of it. But I think, and as you said, God forbid something were to happen to him, I think not only is it a case of being ready to step in case something happens, or in case he has to have surgery or something like that, but the question is going to be whether Vice President and hopefully soon to be President Biden, whether he even chooses to run for a second term. And if that's the case, whoever the vice president is the presumptive nominee at that point. Right.
Now let's talk about the one candidate that would be a shoo-in to help Biden over the top, and that's former President Barack Obama's wife, Michelle Obama. I mean, she would be, if he could somehow could convince her to run as his running mate, that ticket would be unstoppable.
Yeah, I agree totally. She's still one of the most popular people in America. She would instantly bring grace and dignity to the ticket. She's obviously was very close to President Obama when he was in office, as far as an actual advisor to him. And so I think she would definitely, and talk about somebody that would turn out the Democratic base. Holy cow, she would definitely do it. Now the question is, she has always said that she has no interest in politics for herself. She has no interest in running. But the question is whether VP Biden goes to her and says, "You're the only chance we have of defeating Donald Trump. You must do this for your country." Would she be able to say no?
Yeah, that's a tough question. My guess is if he put it to her that way, she probably wouldn't. But I'm not sure he would put it to her that way. And I told you off air before we started that I had a surprise candidate for you. And so I want to, before I tell you who it is, I want to give you a chance to see if you can guess it. So I told you a few years back when we were discussing John McCain's candidacy when he was running against Obama. And I said that had he picked Joe Lieberman to be his running mate, I thought they would easily win. So that's my hint.
That's the clue.
That's the clue. So
all right.
I'll tell you this. Checks off all the boxes.
Well, then in that case, I think you're going to say it's Condoleezza Rice.
You're absolutely right. Condoleezza Rice. So I think Condi has a lot of upside. What?
Hey, Gunnar, anybody watching, we totally did not, he would not tell me that before the podcast. That was not a setup.
Yeah. So I think she checks off a lot of boxes. I think she would go a long way towards healing the country. I mean, you look back at Lincoln's presidency, and one of the things that made him such a great president was he surrounded himself with, as Doris Kearns Goodwin said, the team of rivals, people that, wanted his job. And so I think reaching across the aisle, picking a woman of color, someone with a lot of upside like Condi, I think that would be a great move for the country and for Joe Biden. What's your take? Well,
I don't know how much in the mood after the current occupant of the White House is that I'm in for healing.
Right.
But I think it definitely would be a unity ticket. I think it would be pretty hard to stop. But I think Biden probably faces the same challenges that John McCain did, which is, do you face mass defections from your own party if you pick somebody that's that conservative and that hawkish? Because she is definitely a war hawk.
Right.
She's definitely a neocon. And she's had some flattering things recently to say about Trump. So I actually, when she was talking about Trump a few weeks ago, I thought that maybe she would, it was in relation to the Russian bounties issue. I thought maybe Trump, in some of the speculation that he was going to dump Pence, maybe he was going to dump Pence for her.
Right. Well,
there still is that possibility on his side, by the way, that with the poll numbers the way they are, that he decides to go with Nikki Haley to counter a woman of color on the Biden side.
Right. Well, Nikki Haley, I think at this point would definitely help his standing in the polls. So.
All right, so we've gone through the full field, and I had one other surprise candidate too. I was going to say Oprah Winfrey,
right?
So we reviewed everything. Now let's cut to the chase, Gunnar. You got to put some money and some skin on the line for this one, and tell me who you think the pick will be.
My choice for the pick, if I were Joe Biden, I'd have to go with Tammy Duckworth.
Tammy Duckworth, fantastic. Yeah. Now, that's who, if the pick was yours, who do you think Biden will pick?
I think Biden will pick Susan Rice.
Susan Rice, very good, very good. If I played the same two cards, I would say that if I had my druthers on the pick, I would say probably, this is a tough one for me because I like a lot of these candidates, but I would probably say my pick would be, in my heart, my pick would be Tammy Duckworth. But I think he'll end up picking Kamala Harris. That's who I think he'll end up on.
Right. Well, any of those three I think would be good candidates. So, Kamala or Tammy or Susan, I think the country would be in great shape with a Biden ticket with one of those.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we've had another great discussion, G-Man.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
so, again, want to encourage everybody, comment on the videos. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know where we're wrong. We make mistakes, not very often, but let us know where you disagree. And again, I'll say what I said last time. Make sure you understand your deadlines. Get registered to vote. Register to vote by mail if you can. But make sure you're registered, because that's the way we're going to make a difference in November.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Good night, everyone. We'll see you next week.